Testing for live stream. Testing one, two, three.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I would like to start by stating that the Council for the City of Port Alberni would like to acknowledge and recognize that we work, live, and play in the City of Port Alberni, which is situated on the unceded territories of the Sashat and Hupachesit First Nations. Are there any late items by councillors?
I would just like to bring up the Johnson Road lights and just get the CAO to answer some questions at the end, please. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, we'll add that. That's okay. That would be correspondence for information?
Under old business, maybe?
Sure. Where would you like to add that, corporate officer?
Through the chair, new business, item 5 would be appropriate.
All right, we'll add that to new business. And are there any late items identified by the corporate officer?
Through the chair, in addition to item C1 under delegations, we have 2 staff members to introduce, as well as under item I1H, correspondence for information, we have a letter from the Salvation Army.
Keep hitting the wrong button. Go ahead, Cindy.
Just a quick, I kind of missed that on councillors, but could we also get an update on the big announcement on Tuesday, maybe from our CAO at some point too? Thank you.
Sure, yeah, we'll add that also to, that would be new business as well.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'd just like to give notice that this session of council is being video recorded and live streamed and broadcast on YouTube. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Councillor Patola, seconded by Councillor Solda. All in favor? Carried. On to delegations. Oh, sorry, I skipped over adoptions of minutes here. Can I get a motion to for adoption of minutes? Moved. Seconded. All in favor? Carried. And on to delegations. So we are very pleased to recognize a few 25-year employees of the City of Port Alberni. So I'll pass it off to CAO now.
Thank you, and through the chair, it's not too often we get to recognize employees for 25 years, and I'm very honored to get to start the process off. It's in this day and age, employees aren't sticking with one job as long, and the city offers a variety of opportunities, and I'm really happy to see that the knowledge has been retained in the employee base and their expertise honed for the city. To give the presentations, I'll call upon the Manager of Operations, Clint Wright, and maybe I can also ask the Deputy Mayor to come up front for pictures after the introductions.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure, after 4 years being able to work with these gentlemen, to introduce the 25 years each of them has put towards working with the city, all in unique ways. The first person I'd like to introduce is Amar Giri. Amar started as a seasonal employee back in 1998 in the summer, and quickly worked his way up to the water system charge hand, and that was in 2013. So he's been doing this job for a very long time. He's well respected by the employees, always top-notch customer service, and an extremely honorable man. So congratulations, Amar. Next, I'd like to call up Rod Jungenkruger. Yes, I practiced that last name. Rod has been with the city since July of 1998. He started off as a laborer. Rod has a very thin file, but that is a good thing. And, there's still time. And in 2007, Rod became a solid waste collector. Top-notch service, and a very consistent and very reliable employee. So congratulations, Rod.
Thank you.
And last but definitely not least, we've got Roman Wider. So Roman, medium-sized file, but that's also, it can be a good thing as well, and it is. He started off in 1998 as an arena maintenance worker. Got into laboring in public works, spent a little time in traffic services, and then he became a water system operator, moving his way up to a technician. And Roman is actually in charge of a lot of our source water protection and making sure that our water quality is top notch. And he does an excellent job and spending many hours on the weekends making sure that the water we're receiving is good quality. So congratulations, Roman.
Thank you.
I would also at this time like to recognize that there are two other 25-year employees who are not in attendance, and that would be Louisa McMeekin, watch clerk for the RCMP, and Dawn McMurtry, a receptionist at the Aquatic Center. Yeah, thank you so much for your 25 years of service to our community. I will now pass it off to the CAO again to introduce some new employees.
Great, thank you very much. And through the chair, I'd really like to welcome two employees in two much-needed positions. It's always a pleasure to have new people starting with our organization. So to introduce the two employees, it will be the Director of Infrastructure Services and the Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you. Through the chair. So I'm delighted to let everybody know that we have a new manager of communications, and you've seen Sonia Lowe already taking photos today. She's originally from Port Alberni and has now returned back to the Valley after several years of experience with the province of BC. And so, Sonia, we're very happy to have you join the team.
Good afternoon, Council. I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Dave Arsenault, who is our new project manager. He comes to us with over 25 years experience in both municipal and consulting roles. Dave and his wife moved to Port Alberni back in 2021, and we're very excited to have him on board for his experience. He'll be chairing all the master plans that are starting next year, and it's going to impact our organization in a very positive way. So we're very happy to welcome him.
Just an opportunity if either of the new staff would like to say a few words, no pressure. I don't know if you were asked ahead of time, but there's opportunity if you'd like to. Okay, no problem. Welcome. Yeah, and on to the next delegation. We would like to welcome Miss Wynn up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, council members. Good to see you all again. Thank you again for your consideration regarding the variance permit I submitted for my cedar fence that my partner and I built in the winter of 2023. When I bought my property in April 2021, I had big dreams of turning this space into a welcoming oasis for myself and the family I want to create, and for my future short-term rental clients. Port Alberni has a lot of potential, and I wanted to plant roots here and be part of it. When my partner and I began to plan how to go about revamping this space, we decided that building a fence would be the first step. We also noticed that there was no standard of fence and hedge height throughout Port Alberni. Just on my street alone on Dunbar, some neighbors have hedges that measure from 6 to 20 feet and fences that are 10 feet, including the cement barrier in which they were built upon. Examples such as these are not a rare exception. Tall fences and hedges are the norm in this town. In addition, it is important to note the unique landscape of my property. There are 3 different slopes, all of which converge to make the busy street of Dunbar topographically higher than my 2 lots, so drivers and pedestrians look down into my property as it descends into Dry Creek Ravine. So the 4-foot hedge that was present on my property did little to deter persons with nefarious intent and grazing animals from entering my property at will, nor did it provide any semblance of privacy or security. Another prominent factor that contributed to our desire to build a fence were the increased crime rates in the area that my community has fallen victim to. So much so that the RCMP regularly dispatches written public service warnings to remind us to be vigilant and to take additional measures to protect one's home and property. Myself and my partner have spoken with many of our neighbors about our own experiences with crime in the area and how they have been personally affected. I relayed all of this information during the last 2 meetings I attended since this ordeal has started almost a year ago in January 2023. One memorable example is that of my neighbor Angel, who is a living caregiver for her 97-year-old grandmother. Angel keeps a sledgehammer behind her grandmother's rocking chair by the front door because of how many times people have been trying to break into their homes. The sentiment in this neighborhood is that we no longer feel safe. Since I moved here in April 2021, I have called the police almost monthly due to the troubled individuals who are screaming and fighting, starting fires on and around my property and the bordering park space. I reached out to the bylaw officer in regards to the homeless encampment set up behind my house in the spring, and it took almost a month for this to be addressed. During that time, those individuals had no qualms about littering, screaming throughout the night, leaving human waste, dirty needles, and starting fires. Given the unmistakable reality that many homeowners and council members have not been keeping in line with the outdated bylaw related to the fence and hedge height and 4.5 feet, combined with the increased crime rates of the community and our rights as homeowners, my partner and I worked hard to build a beautiful and unique live edge cedar fence. What we created is a beautiful testament to the historical forest industry and traditional carpentry skills. We harvested, we split, we milled and assembled everything by hand in the middle of winter. During the entire building process, we had so many wonderful people that stopped by and commend us on our traditional artistic design and express gratitude for contributing to the beautification of the area. Unfortunately, one negative passerby chose to make a complaint, and we received a notification of a fine from the city for building a fence higher than 4.5 feet. The fence along the driveway is only 6, and along Dunbar is 8. This 2-foot difference is due to the concrete retaining wall along my driveway to compensate for the additional west-leaning slope. The filing of this bylaw infraction against me is an interesting example of the governmental hypocrisy and unjust selective enforcement of bylaws we as citizens are faced with today? Why is this bylaw being enforced onto me, yet no one else in the community or city council government members are being harassed about their fence heights? The selective enforcement of this outdated bylaw is contrary to the entire purpose of government, which is to support and protect its citizens. How is a fence height of 4 feet protecting myself or my property? And if having a taller fence endangered the community to the extent in which the ACP and council has stated, why is this bylaw not being enforced for everyone else in Port Alberni, including council members? Many council members and ACP members openly admitted during the last 2 meetings that they themselves enjoy the hedge heights taller than 4 feet. Yet I have been harassed, and valuable taxpayer funds are being allocated towards reprimanding me for protecting myself and my property. If Port Alberni really wants to make the community safer, selectively penalizing new young homeowners that come to the community with the vision to improve property, open small businesses, and support the tourist industry is a pretty damaging approach. Throughout this whole 11-month ordeal, I have respectively participated in the governmental process, seeking out a variance permit, which is classist in its foundation, for it cost me an additional $600 to be able to come and speak to you folks today. This is unjust. I have advocated for myself and for my neighbors during the February council meeting, again during the ACP meeting in August, and again here today. The ACP voted in August to support an 8-foot variance with the top 2 feet replaced with lattice. They acknowledge that the bylaw is selective enforcement and it's unethical, and homeowners have the right to protect their property and themselves. They also acknowledge that this bylaw is significantly outdated, for it no longer respects the reality of the criminal element that community members are regularly impacted by. I was then recently notified by the manager of city planning that his team does not support the ACP's recommendation from August 2023, where they voted to support the variance of an 8-foot fence with lattice installed in the top 2 feet. Instead, city planning management team will only support a variance of 6. So I compromised and adjusted my application for 6 feet. But I'm still confused as to what the whole purpose of the ACP meeting was in August, if that vote was going to be completely disregarded. Please note that the way in which my fence has been constructed does not allow for any other further adjustment of 6 feet. There are 2 horizontal beams at 6 and 2 feet in which all the vertical boards are fastened to. So if there's any adjustment below 6 feet, I will essentially have to chop down my entire fence. Is this council really going to destroy my home and food security based on this outdated bylaw when your own council members have admitted publicly during these meetings that they themselves enjoy the benefits of their own tall fences and their own tall hedges? Is that how this government is going to inspire young people like myself to move here, to invest their life savings and time and money and energies into this community? That's a pretty negative attitude, and it will have rippling consequences for years and years to come. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sorry, could you come back up? I forgot to ask you to introduce yourself at the beginning. It's just
Nina Nguyen.
some housekeeping. Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay. Next delegation, I will welcome Dee Wallace up to the podium. And I'll just get you to introduce yourself to start.
Hello, my name is Nada Al-Masri. I thought all these folks were here to hear me speak, but looks like there are awards. So congratulations. So obviously I'm a resident in Port Alberni, but I'm originally from Palestine. I'm from Gaza. I have a lot of family members there. And I think given what's happening there and the situation, and all the misinformation that's been spreading, I think it's really critical for us to come here and voice our concerns and really seek your support in continuing to ask for a ceasefire. I'm not a politician, I'm not a public speaker, I'm not even an expert, subject matter expert. But I do have people there, and I'm hoping I can, in the next few minutes, I can just share some of the stories and experiences of my family members there, as well as like that other folks in Palestine have been experiencing. Sorry, I'm just gonna put a timer because I think my friend is a much better speaker and I wanna make sure to give her time as well. Okay, so I really wish I didn't have to be here, and I wish that we don't have to talk about this. But the situation, like, it is what it is, and I feel like it's imperative for us to really take a stance and voice our concerns about the genocide that continues to happen. We all know that what's happening there didn't start yesterday or 2 months ago. This is something that's been happening for decades. The atrocities that have been committed by the Israeli government has been ongoing, and that's part of why we're here. As Palestinians, we've been displaced from our country since 48, and many of us left in 67, and we have been deprived of the right of return, so I can't even go to visit Gaza. And things have been getting worse, but unfortunately, we don't really hear about it often because the life of Palestinians don't matter. And anyways, I'm here not to plead for the humanities or prove the humanity of Palestinians, but I'm hoping to see our humanity here today in support of the Palestinian people there. There's a lot of misinformation about this being a war on Hamas, or this Israel versus Hamas problem, but the reality is 20,000 Palestinians have been killed, and 7,000 of these people are children, at least, and many are still, what's it called? They're still under the rebels, so we don't even know where they are. And we're talking about thousands of people, and many of these kids are children. And part of me is hoping that these children are dead, because I can't imagine what it's like to spend days, hours, days, or even weeks under the rebels. My grandma is there, and she couldn't, they keep telling them to leave the north, go to the south. They talk about safe corridors and all these things, but it's a nice language they use to talk about effectively displacing people. My grandma is an 80-year-old. They came and they destroyed her walker. It wasn't a bomb. Soldiers came and they just destroyed it, right? I'm talking about my uncle who said that, described the situation 2 days ago, him saying he's just walking around the south, trying to find bread to feed his family. And he said, it looks like the day of judgment. It's like too many people, there's no place for us to go, and there is no food. In a conversation with my 8-year-old cousin, he kept saying, I'm so hungry, there's nothing to eat, there's not even leaves on the trees that we can eat, right? And I don't know how you explain or you justify what's happening to an 8-year-old. I'm talking about my aunt who went to 6 different schools, UNRWA or like United-run schools, to seek shelter and safety, and being turned away because there's no space. There's no space. People are sleeping on top of each other. I have many cousins there, many uncles and aunts, and they're all over the place. The lucky ones were able to shelter in a friend's house, but many of them are in schools, many of them are sleeping on the streets as close as possible to a school or a hospital. This is unfortunately the reality. I have family members that have been killed in this war. I have family members who were killed years ago. I have family members who died because of lack of access to healthcare. My aunt died 2 years ago, due to inadequate health care in Palestine, in Gaza, because of the siege that's been ongoing for 20 years. I have a four-year-old cousin who died crying for her mom, and her mom couldn't be with her because Israel won't grant her a permit to move, to go to the hospital. There are too many stories to mention. And like I said, I'm not here to make you sad or cry, but I'm just here to just shed some light on the the situation there, and just get you to see beyond the misinformation and the propaganda and whatever lies they're spreading on the news. Earlier this year, I had a baby who, after giving birth, a few hours later, my baby died. I got to spend a few hours with her, and it took me a long, long time. It took me months to get over it. And I've only known her for 2 hours. And the impact it had on me was just so significant, and just too vast. And like I said, I barely knew her. The impact she had on me and my family, my friends, my colleagues was so immense. And I had the best support. My family is incredible. My husband, my parents, my sisters, my colleagues, everyone really showed up for me. I had the best care at the hospital. I had the best care from my colleagues. I had paid time off, all of that. And I still really struggled. So when I see 7,000 children dead and counting, I don't know. I really don't know what it's like. And I don't know what it's like for them to move forward. We talk about, like, even here in Canada, we're talking about our children and the children, the discovery of the mass graves, and like the grief, and like, how did that happen? How could we allow that? And maybe it's too late to do something about those children, but it's not to stop the killing of Palestinian children today. So anyways, thank you for listening. I'm not saying we should solve the world problems, but I think as a first step, a ceasefire is what we need, so we can at least go into figuring out like how to move, to sit at a table and figure out a way to move forward in a peaceful way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nada, for sharing that. And it just made me think of this line that I heard over the last 2 months, that these children are our children. And here today to ask you to look inside your hearts and find your own humanity. And I deeply felt that just listening to you and listening to the many stories and experiences that have been shared over the past couple months and for decades. My name is Desiree Wallace, and I am a resident of Port Alberni. I am one of the many community members seated here today, online, and those who could not make this meeting that are supporting the requested action to council in support of life of Palestinian community members, as well as their kin, especially in Gaza and the West Bank, but also the world over. I'd just like to ask anybody who is here today in support of this requested action to raise your hand to let them know how many people are here in support. And there are more online and more that couldn't make either one of these venues. As illustrated clearly by Nada, this worsening genocide has serious impacts on community members living here in Port Alberni. We collectively believe that a ceasefire is a just call for peace, protecting the sanctity of all civilian life. As anti-Palestinian racism, Islamophobia and anti-Semitism rises, it is critical that we collectively rise up to amplify this call for peace and ensure our community is safe and welcoming for all, which we believe to be a municipal government matter. We appreciated seeing the recent rental policy that is intended to keep city facilities free of hate, and that in that provincial and federal human rights legislation was brought in to do so. And we see this requested action here today along those same lines. To be clear, we are not asking you to weigh in on what a political solution will look like internationally. Rather, we're asking you to follow a responsibility as elected council members to represent our community and collectively communicate with the Canadian government regarding the call for the basic first step of a ceasefire so that those longer-term political solutions can come to fruition. It is clear that international pressure is needed to put an end to this horrific genocide, and we all have a moral obligation to rise up when innocent lives, especially those of children, are being taken under impunity. The following municipalities have passed a motion calling for a ceasefire: Burnaby, Victoria, Pickering, Mississauga, Hamilton, Hamilton, London, Toronto, Brampton, Saskatoon, Edmonton, and we are sincerely hoping that the Port Alberni Council will join them today in doing so. You have all received the requested action to council. I just wanted to make one amendment, which was at the first part of this resolution, was to just remove the word permanent so that it is an immediate ceasefire. That word was meant to distinguish between a ceasefire and a pause, which we saw recently in Gaza. But we have been informed that a permanent ceasefire is a different political structure. So the first part of the resolution would be that the mayor and councillor of the city of Port Alberni write a letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to request that the federal government call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. I'm not sure, do I need to read the rest of the requested action again?
It's up to you if you want to
Okay,
do that.
sure. If I have time, is that okay? The secondary part of this is that mayor and council of the city of Port Alberni condemn all acts of anti-Palestinian racism, Islamophobia, and anti-Semitism in our communities, which have risen since the escalation of violence this past month, and commit to working to ensure our communities are just, safe, and welcoming for all. And that MP Gord Johns receives a copy of this letter. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you both for and for everyone else for coming and showing your support. This is one of those situations where our voice feels small, but we have a voice nonetheless. And so, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and make this motion, these motions, and then I'll open it up for discussion if there's a seconder. Okay. I'll read them. So I move that the mayor and council of the city of Port Alberni write a letter to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to request that the federal government call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. And I had a second from Councillor Mealy. Are there any comments?
Sorry, guys, Mr. Mayor. Did you want to do this individually, or should we do it all as one, as part of one request?
Sure, let's do it all together then, if nobody has an issue with that. I also move that mayor and council of the city of Port Alberni condemn all acts of anti-Palestinian racism, Islamophobia, and anti-Semitism in our communities, which have risen since the escalation of violence this past month, and commit to working to ensure our communities are just, safe, and welcoming for all, and that MP Gord Johns receive a copy of that letter. And it was seconded by Councillor Mealy. Are there any comments? Councillor Mealy.
Your old neighbor here. I mean, you're a little far away. That's okay. So first of all, thank you very much, ladies, for coming. Really appreciate that. And I really appreciate the fact that you're asking council to do what they can within their mandate. It's obviously not up to us to create world peace and such, but I think the one thing that we can say, no matter where we are, is war is bad, peace is good, ceasefires are good, protecting children is good. So I think that pretty much just sums it up at this point. So thank you for coming. I really appreciate it.
Yes, Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very complex issue, and as you said, it's been going on for decades, and it's something that I don't understand from either side. But one thing I am against is war, and you moved me to tears. And I'm very sorry for what you've been going through, so I will support this motion.
Is there anyone else? Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really respect Councillor Haggard and her definition of this situation. So I don't mean to detract from that, but I would like to say, as a parallel point of view, that this is not a complex issue. This is an issue of peace and war. This is an issue of life and death. This is an issue of supporting different cultures or committing genocide. And I stand for pacifism and I stand against genocide. I am in support of the motion and have nothing more to say. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you again for coming. I would just like to take this opportunity to have a brief pause so that anyone who wishes to leave now, having finished the purpose that they came here for, can do so. And you're, of course, also welcome to stay if you would like. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to staff reports, and we'll start with accounts.
Okay, how do you go from one topic that's so sad to, this? Anyways, I'll move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated December 11th, 2023 be received in checks numbered 153986 to 154085, inclusive in payment of accounts totaling $4,137,989.15 be approved.
Seconded by Councillor Mealy. Are there any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Moving on to bylaws. City of Port Alberni 2023 to 2027 financial plan amendment. So that would be staff.
Through the chair, these are from previous meetings and they're just here for the last readings.
Thank you. Can I get someone, Councillor Mealy? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the City of Port Alberni 2023-2027 Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw number 5075-1, 2023 be now finally adopted, signed by the Mayor and Corporate Officer and numbered 5075-1.
Seconded by Councillor Patola. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. And on to the next one. Would you like to read that one again also?
I can, Mr.
Councillor
Mayor.
Mealy?
I'll move that the zoning amendment 3045, 3053, 3063 Kingsway Avenue bylaw number 5096 be introduced and read a first time.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Did I steal your thunder there, Brian? Sorry about that. Go ahead, Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I realize the matter has been voted on. I was expecting that we were going to be having a report with some information, background information, before we had a vote. Even if it was, moved and seconded, I thought we'd be having that information before we had the vote. But in any event, perhaps when it comes to second reading, we'll have that information. Thank you very much.
I apologize. We'll chalk that up to a rookie mistake, if that's okay. But is that okay if we wait for second reading, or do you want to backtrack here? I know that we've already voted on the matter. CAO, is that?
Through the chair, I'm sure planning would be more than happy to give you an overview for the first reading.
That would be great if we could see that report. I do apologize.
And through the chair, I think I said the next two. I didn't mean to say the next two, so you can blame some on me too.
Okay. All right, thank you, Chair and Council. Always happy to share at first reading for the sake of getting the information out there for Council and the public. So for consideration today for Council, or you may have already considered, is the development application at 3045, 3053, and 3063 Kingsway Avenue. And this is amending bylaw 5096, and that's for a zoning bylaw amendment. And the applicant is Streamside Homes. To give you a quick rundown on the application and the amending bylaws, these are the properties on the screen. It actually consists of 3 lots, about a couple lots just south of Argyle Street on Kingsway Avenue, and the applicant is proposing to develop across all 3 lots. And they're requesting changes to the zoning bylaw. In particular, they wish to change the current multi-residential zoning from RM2 and from C7 to a comprehensive development zone. And sorry, I'm just getting a little bit of echoing in the room. Oh, that's much better. Okay. I'll just try not to listen to my own voice. So they are proposing to create a zone specific for this development. And in that case, a professional architect has designed this development, and the zone is crafted around that to fit specifically with this property and the proposal they've brought forward. Here's a picture of the site looking from Argyle Street. You can see the vacant lot there. A yellow dot represents the approximate location of where the building would go. And looking in the other direction, slightly towards the mill, you can see the property as well in this photo. It's currently a vacant lot. And this is the building they're proposing to put on the property. There's a few more photos I'll go through. There's a few different views from different angles of the building. You've got a view from the north in the top left. In the top right, you have a view from the rear laneway. And then at the very bottom, you have a view looking east, which is the building, how it would look from the street and in relation to the neighboring buildings. It is a 6-story building with 25 strata or condo apartments. They're designed to be 1 and 2 bedroom, and it would have underground parking. As I mentioned, the zoning is a mix of RM2 multi-residential as well as C7. It's right on the edge of where the commercial neighborhood shifts to multifamily zoning. And this lot they're proposing to create, this zone they're proposing to create would have more height, more density, more lot coverage than the current multi-residential zones. But that zoning itself is comparable to C7, the C7 zone that is around this neighborhood. And the setbacks are shorter than the current multi-residential zones, but more comparable to the C7 zone. So in actuality, it fits somewhere in between our multi-residential zones and the C7 zone. which is fitting for its location on the edge of that commercial neighborhood. In terms of parking and open space, the underground parking would be accessed from Kingsway. Cars would just drive in off the street. There would be 25 spaces. That's 1 parking stall per unit, and then an additional 28 bicycle storage spaces inside. That's a secure bicycle parking. As part of the program of the development, that people who live there would be active and have the option of using a bicycle for their travel if they desired. The development itself, being a dense development, has less open space per unit, but they do include a large rooftop patio for residents. So a few staff notes for council. It's important to emphasize that this is market real estate as condominium units. It's not subsidized housing. It's not purpose-built rental. These are units for market sale. It is a dense style of apartment building that's common in urban areas, and the building itself is designed for its location. So it's close to services, it's close to parks, it's close to businesses, but it's also a dense form of building with smaller units. The additional 25 households will help revitalize the neighborhood. At least that's how planning works in principle. And this aligns with the 2021 Uptown District Revitalization Strategy and some of those objectives within the plan. And when we think of development like this, that's dense and it's in this neighborhood, it's important to consider that there will be shadowing on neighboring properties due to the height of the building. We're expecting that. We're also expecting some use of the street parking with this style of development, especially for visitors. And in terms of the infrastructure that's needed to support this development, the developer would be responsible for building that infrastructure and providing the funds to do that. So options for council. Should I go through them again? Okay, I'll just, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manager of Planning. Again, I apologize. I would like to still offer the opportunity for council to have input despite completing first reading. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I realize these are 1 and 2 bedroom units, and you said they were smaller units. Do you know approximately what the square footage of these units will be?
Through council, through the chair to Councillor Haggard, I don't actually have the square footage on me at the moment, but what we are seeing in terms of development in urban areas is that there's a trend towards smaller units in general, as opposed to what you might have seen in the 1990s or early 2010s, largely due to the cost of land. And so developers are looking to maximize the development potential of the property. But in this case, it's important to emphasize that smaller units and a building with less open space is really a function of where it's located in a neighborhood. So you can fit more units in a denser format in a downtown neighborhood because you can walk to Harbor Key, you can walk to a park, and walk to get what you need. Yeah.
Councillor Solda.
Just a quick question. Is there a new ruling now that apartments that are being built and that they have to have electric chargers and stuff like that as part of their infrastructure that's not out there? Because I read something about it. Maybe I'm wrong.
Through the chair to Councillor Solda. I'm actually not aware of recent changes to the BC Building Code with regard to electric vehicle chargers, but that's something we can look into. I do know there are significant changes coming to the building code in the early spring, late winter. Yeah.
Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. In looking at this, is there any concern with underground parking of this being in the high risk in the tsunami inundation zone? When we review development like this, it's really difficult to judge the viability of development based on a tsunami hazard because we don't know when it'll happen or what it will look like. But the important thing to emphasize with this development is that there is no livable space below the second story, which kind of, it helps to mitigate the damage if there happened to have been a tsunami. Yeah.
Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have there been any analysis done on the shadow lines on this development?
Through the chair to Councillor Patola. The applicant did provide a shadow analysis with their development, and that's included in the development plans that council received. And I believe that we outlined in a report that there would be additional shadowing on the neighboring property, specifically the one to the north, I believe. There is a house right next door. I believe it was an old Siemens Haven. That's correct. Yeah, there would be shadowing on that property, I believe, but I'd have to double check my notes. Oh. Councillor Neely has the shadow analysis on his laptop. The shadowing, particularly in the winter months, is expected on the neighboring properties. But we can bring more information back to council if you would like more discussion.
Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And along the same lines, what about the view analysis from surrounding properties, particularly those to the east or upslope?
Through the chair to Councillor Patola. In terms of a viewscape analysis, that's not something that we've requested from the applicant, and it's not something that we typically require during development, but it is something that council can request. And in this case, I'm assuming you mean the impact on the views for other properties, correct?
Yes, absolutely. It seems to me that this is the first of any multi-level buildings in the residential part of this area. And it would have a significant, at 6 stories, a significant impact on many households' views.
Further comment on that, or that was just...
Through the chair to Councillor Patola, would you like me to respond? Is there a question in particular? I'd be happy to provide more information.
I just would, guess I would be interested in seeing not only a shadow analysis, but viewscape analysis as well in further reports. Also, I'm interested in the amount of densification. This calculates to approximately 8 units per lot. The proposal from the province to increase densification starts at moving to 4 units per lot with higher density at 6 units. This is over 8 units. So this is density that's surpassing the highest requirements that I understand the province is indicating. Is any reason why the planning department or the a proponent of this application is interested in jumping to such a high densification so quickly when there is no other densification in the area?
Manager of Planning.
Through the chair to Councillor Patola. With regards to the new provincial regulations, that's particularly with regard to enabling higher density residential development in all residential zones. In this case, the applicant is proposing an apartment building, which are typically at much higher densities. And it's really the location that matters. And I mentioned in my presentation that it's designed for its location. In terms of planning principles and community planning, locating your highest density residential within walking distance of businesses and services is the highest priority, and something council may wish to consider. Certainly when we go through the official community plan process, we'll be looking to bring options to the community for discussion about increasing density around commercial cores. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Oh, Councillor Patola.
So I take it from your response then that there's been no real discussion about how to increase densification in Port Alberni, what the rate of incremental densification increase should be, or what the maximum densification should be on any particular lot. So in this case, are we just following the desire of the developer, and or has there been any feedback from the planning department with regards to the amount of densification here and what other options are available?
Through the chair to Councillor Patola, when we receive an application, we do review it with the applicant and we review it with our engineering department. And we have conversations with the applicant before they even apply and get to a point where, in most cases, we're comfortable bringing an application forward. And in this case, staff support the amounts of density that's been proposed for this location. And sorry, to also answer your question about how dense do we build, how high do we build, and where, that is absolutely questions that we'll be bringing up in the official community planning process and the subsequent zoning bylaw that will come after that.
And this may be a rhetorical question, but if those issues are so important for the OCP, why aren't they being asked with regards to this one-off development?
Through the chair to Councillor Patola, we have asked that, and staff are comfortable with the proposal, but you as council have the option of asking further questions and voting at the level of comfort you feel, with this development on a one-off basis.
So thank goodness for second and third readings is what, go ahead, Councillor Patola, you have, Councillor Haggard.
At the beginning of the last council term, we had a planner that was working here, and he said on numerous occasions, you don't own the view.
Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Manager of Planning. On to correspondence for action. Local Government Leadership Academy, Corporate Officer.
Through the chair, it's a piece of correspondence inviting council to the Local Government Leadership Academy, January 31st to February 2nd. It's an annual forum that focuses on strategies to strengthen citizen engagement, foster inclusive decision-making, and build resilience in sustainable local communities. Came a little too late to prepare a report, but we did prepare a suggested motion should council choose to send someone.
Thank you. Would anyone like to go to that Leadership Academy? John? Councillor Douglas, pardon me. Anyone else? Was there a number of councillors we were looking to send, or just whoever's interested?
That would be the decision of council at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Councillor Douglas, anyone else? Okay, would somebody like to make that motion then? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council authorize Councillor John Douglas to attend the Local Government Leadership Academy Forum, Empowering Communities, Leading Change Together, taking place January 31st to February 2nd, 2024 in Vancouver, BC, with authorization to include reimbursement of expenses incurred as per city policy number P6, travel expense policy.
Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Patola. Are there any comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carried. Proclamations. There are none today, so correspondence for information. Corporate Officer.
Through the Deputy Mayor, we have a number of pieces of correspondence today. First one being from the City of Victoria regarding the installation of speed and red light cameras. We have a letter from the National Police Federation clarifying misconceptions regarding the Surrey transition and policing in BC. And then we have several letters from the ministries in follow-up to our UBCM meetings. Excuse me. City of Fort St. John wrote to request to enact the Community Safety Act or the Community Safety Amendment Act. And then we have from the Vancouver Island Regional Library, the 2024 budget and levies, a Ministry of Environment and Climate Change strategy regarding the provincial phase out of single-use and plastic items, minutes from the Alberni Valley Museum and Heritage Commission, as well as our late, excuse me, our late item this morning from the Salvation Army.
Thank you very much. Would any members of council like to highlight any of these pieces of correspondence? Councillor Haggard.
I'm sorry if you've already discussed this, but I'm looking at the letter from Vancouver Island Regional Library Board about the 2024 budget. And I know there was a discussion about the rate of increase in our contribution for the year 2024, but I was away. I was wondering what percentage increase that will be. Do you remember? Does anybody remember?
Councillor Patola.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I can comment on that. I think it's 18% is essentially what results for Port Alberni, although I can't recall specifically if that is the general number or that is the specific number, which sometimes changes by community population, but generally it's 18%.
And how do they justify such a large increase? Like, what are they increasing in their budgets? That just operating expenses have gone up?
Without being oversimplifying, the generic general reasons for increase. So budget, collective agreements, increase in costs for capital programs and maintenance costs with regards to inflation. And there's a significant amount that goes to refunding underfunded accounts.
Is there any way that council could express their extreme disappointment in this large of increase at the next library board meeting through Councillor Patola or representative?
CAO.
Through the chair, if council wants to make a motion towards that, then Councillor Patola would have the motion to speak to at the next board meeting.
I would like to make that motion.
Could we have that?
Clear.
Sorry, yeah, that motion clarified.
I would like to make a motion that the council of the city of Port Alberni expresses their extreme disappointment in the 18% rate increase from the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board. And if Councillor Patola could take that to the next meeting.
Moved by Councillor Haggard, seconded by Councillor Solda. Are there any comments? Councillor Patola.
I'd be more than happy to do so. They already know my displeasure and the representations I've made on behalf of this council's displeasure with that situation. There's a board of, I think it's 34 directors. I might have that number off by a few. They almost entirely voted in favor of continuing with the budget. The budget was passed unanimously originally, but once revisited, it was not unanimous, although a number of the directors that supported it were overwhelming.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry. Councillor Solda.
Just a quick thought. This is not the first time in all these years, percentage 18%. I mean, it's been really high in the past for their budget, and if you don't nip it, it's going to escalate even more. And although we do recognize that libraries are very important, but there has to be another way to this system where the cost is not such a bearing on the taxpayers, and it's really frustrating. Through the years, other council and regional districts have had issues. So I just wanted to bring that forward. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Haggard.
I was just going to say in my last year when I was the representative, I think it was a 7% increase, and I thought that was outrageous at that time. And 18% is just not acceptable.
Seeing no other comments, all in favor? None opposed? Motion. Moving on to report from in camera. Committee and commission appointments. Staff? CAO? I guess that's just for us to,
Yeah, through the chair, I believe this is just the releasing of prior information from in camera from the last meeting.
sure. I'll read that out. Council releases for public consumption the following committee commission appointments. Reappointment of Stephanie Weber and Callan Noy to the Advisory Planning Commission for a two-year term commencing January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2025. Reappointment of Joshua Dalling, Callan Noy, and Colin Schult to the Community Investment Program for a one-year term commencing January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. And finally, reappointment of Colin Schult to the Alberni Valley Heritage Commission for a two-year term commencing January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2025. Are there any comments or questions on that? Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I just wanted to just quickly highlight this just for information, but just thanks to those people in the community that stepped forward to be on our boards and give of themselves extra time. I know we're still looking for some appointments as well. So if anybody's interested, to contact City Hall. But thank you very much to these people, especially for giving their time to our community.
Thank you for that. On to council reports. Are there any councillors who would like to make a report? Or highlight a report, I should say. Councillor Haggard.
I would like to thank Councillor Solda for organizing our tour of Rainbow Gardens and their new facility. It was a really good experience and I quite enjoyed it, so thank you.
Would somebody like to move the motion, make the motion there?
Receipt of the councillor's reports. So move.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. See, no comments. All in favor? Carried. All right, on to new business. The Community Investment Program. We have a report here from the Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Community Investment Program, or CIP, is a funding mechanism where requests from local nonprofit organizations can be considered once annually, rather than each organization approaching council separately throughout the year. The CIP typically assists with grants for events or programs that would struggle without the support, rather than an organization's day-to-day operating expenses or capital projects. At the top of page 75 of your agenda package lists the number of applications received over the previous 7 years. You'll notice that this 2024 cycle has the fewest number of applications received outside of 2021 during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's difficult to pinpoint why the number of applications has decreased from last year. Currently, there are 4 ways that we communicate the application information to the public. So each December, with this presentation to council, the updated timelines are included in the meeting agenda package posted to the website. They can also be found on page 77 of today's agenda package. In April of this year, we emailed applicants from the previous 3 years to let them know the application cycle was live. So this was a total of 146 unique contacts this year that we made. The information is also located on our website. Folks can enter CIP in the search bar and all details are available there. And a 4th communication we started this year was including an advertisement in the City Connect newsletter with the utility bill mail out this August. So the description of the requests and recommendations are on page 78 of the agenda package, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions that council might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These grants, are they funded out of the city's tax budget?
Yes, so Mr. Mayor, they are included as part of the Parks, Recreation and Culture annual operating budgets. So yes, they are.
Thank you. Councillor Patola.
And so if we reduce these grants, would there be a significant impact on either the park's budget or the park's ability to provide alternate programs? I'm just wondering about kind of value for dollar that we get out of providing grants.
So, Mr. Mayor, further to my report, the purpose of the Community Investment Program, or CIP, is to help facilitate events that wouldn't otherwise function with those grant dollars. So I would see those organizations would need to find other ways to fund those events. So you can see the list of events there on page 78. So it wouldn't necessarily impact the city's programming. So the ability for the city to offer our typical programs under our Parks, Recreation, and Culture budget, that wouldn't change. What would possibly change if the available budget for this program decreased would be the ability for local nonprofit organizations to host those events. So again, the purpose of the CIP is to help fund specific projects or events as opposed to their general operating expenses or utilities or that sort of thing. So I would say yes, that local organizations would struggle possibly with hosting those events, but it would not impact the city's ability to host events.
Councillor Patola.
Thank you. So this is more of a comment for the purposes of any discussion that follows this, but in my report from the BCNPHA, I noted at the end the recommendation that funding becomes under the term "My God," standing for multi-year general operating dollars. And from the explanation that we've received from the director, it seems that many of these grants are for organizations that would not be able to continue without them. And if they are valid grants, which I can only assume they are, then I would suggest that the committee should not explore reducing the grants in 2025 and beyond, but continue providing them to be available and rolling over the surplus funds as they have in the past.
Any other comments? Councillor Solda.
So what about events that come up? You know, like other community organizations have events that will need some aid to them. Who do they apply to? Is it to I thought it was to this community investment program. So if we lower the amount, how will that affect things that just come up? Sometimes there's an event plan maybe in the summer they didn't know about that they're going to do. So how does that work?
So, Mr. Mayor, as I've indicated on the second page of my report there, that the committee would suggest that we retain the surplus funds for late applications that come in. So the application cycle, I mean, at some point there needs to be an application deadline. So it's been selected as the first Friday in November. And so the committee's intention would be to continue that moving forward. Also, the amounts that are outlined in our 5-year financial plan that council has already passed. So there is already a description there as far as what the annual amount is available for the community investment program. So of course, council, as part of your process through the annual financial plan review, of course, you're welcome to change that number. If council does not adjust that number, it would remain as has already been published. As far as going back to Councillor Solda's question around events that pop up, that sort of thing, the committee would typically review late funding requests. So from the period of essentially tomorrow or after this meeting until next November, the committee does review additional requests, what we would consider late requests, so that in the event that events are held outside of the window of this grant funding, that they still have an opportunity to access funds.
Any other comments? All right. Would someone like to make that motion? Councillor Haggard, thank you.
I'd like to move that Council for the City of Port Alberni approve the 2024 Community Investment Program Committee recommendations as outlined in the staff report dated December 4th, 2023.
Seconded by Councillor Douglas. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Motion carried. On to development variance permit for, am I looking at, yep, for Dunbar Street, 4715. We have a report from Development Services.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So for consideration today is the development variance permit 117 at 4735 Dunbar Street, and the applicant is Nina Nguyen. And just for clarification, Mrs. Nguyen, she gave a presentation at the delegation at the beginning of the meeting. So the intent of the application, the applicant is requesting an increase to the height of a fence in a front yard from 4 feet to 6 feet to bring the recently installed fence into compliance. And of course, bringing the fence into compliance with this variance request would require lowering the height of the existing installed 8-foot fence. So the existing permitted height for a fence, hedge, or wall in a front yard is 1.25 meters or 4.1 feet. As we go through the presentations, I'll just refer to it as 4 feet for ease. And the proposed fence height would be 6 feet. Here's an air photo of the property. You can see it consists of 2 lots that back onto Dry Creek Ravine on Dunbar Street. And you can see the house located towards the front of the property. Below, on the bottom of this slide, you'll see a picture of the fence on Dunbar Street, as taken from Dunbar Street. The applicant constructed this fence, and as they mentioned in their delegation presentation, they did receive a bylaw violation notice last winter, and then the applicant applied for a variance. Okay. Thank you. This is another photo of the fence for context. And this is an important slide to consider, and I really want to share this with council. This is a photo, or an air photo image from the city's GIS system, which shows the location of steep slopes in relation to these properties. And it's important to consider that this property does not have what we would consider to be a traditional backyard. Instead of having a backyard, the city backs onto Dry Creek, or sorry, the house backs onto Dry Creek Ravine. The yellow polygons are steep slopes. Which means that the area that these property owners would typically use as private and secure open space on their property would be the side yard or the front yard. Here's a picture of the fence. It's an 8-foot fence with 10-foot posts, and in the yellow line, we've marked what a 6-foot fence would look like. The applicant has requested a variance for a 6-foot fence in the front yard, and the 6-foot height matches what the city would normally permit for a fence in a rear yard. We believe this is a supportable compromise from the 8-foot fence, which is already there. It matches city's existing regulations. It should be noted that permitting a fence of 6 feet in a front yard above the standard 4-foot height in the zoning bylaw may reduce natural surveillance and sight lines to the street from the house, but this would allow the owners to have private and secure outdoor space on the property, made difficult by the site layout and existing topography. And then staff would work with the applicant on a timeline for compliance. Council's options are to authorize the issuance of DVP 117, which would permit the construction of a fence of 6 feet within the required front yard. That is a variance from 4.1 feet to 6 feet, or council may pass a resolution to decline the issuance of DVP 117, or council may direct staff to provide additional information. And staff are recommending that council authorize the issuance of development permit 117. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I recall during the delegation presentation that there was a comment that the property is below grade of the street surface. Do you have any information on that?
Through the chair to Councillor Patola, I am unaware of that information. That's not something that came up during our review, so I have no information.
Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do appreciate that. May I ask staff if council chooses to go with a different height, is that possible at this time? Just a question, clarification?
Through the chair to Councillor Mealy, council could direct staff to bring back more information. I'm not sure that they have to actually deny issuing the permit, but ask that staff bring back an amended application.
Just a follow-up, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate that. And going back to the original, and I see the applicant is here still. The one thing that I heard, at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe to the applicant, is that if it is given, if 6 feet is given, that you would still have to take the fence down. Is that something? And I apologize if I can ask the applicant that. Is that a possibility?
Would you like to come forward just for that?
Sorry, and I apologize. I guess what I'm getting to is 6 feet going to work with you, so we don't have to take the whole fence down. That's the question.
So you're not able to see in the photo, but on the inside of the fence, there's a horizontal beam at 3 feet and another horizontal beam at 6 feet. And all of the vertical pieces of wood are secured to those two portions. So anything below 6 feet will actually render the entire structure useless. Yeah, because we would have to chop everything down because it would impede that top portion.
I appreciate that. I just want to make
no
sure
problem.
that
Thanks.
as we go forward. Thank you so much.
Councillor Solda.
Just a quick question. Is this 8-foot fence around the whole of the property, or is it just in the front?
Through the chair to Councillor Solda, the fence is along the front property line, and then it turns and goes along the driveway towards the house on what would be the west side of the front yard. So it's shaped like an L.
The applicant would like to speak, and I have no problem with that.
North to south, that is along the driveway. That is actually only 6 feet because it's on top of the concrete barrier because my property slopes westward. So there's a step down and the concrete barrier is right there. So that side of the fence is actually only 6 feet. And so when you're actually inside of the yard, when you're standing there, it's 6 feet. But then as you walk along the east and west facet of the fence, that is 8 feet. So we have to kind of deal with the western leaning portion of the property because everything droops down Dunbar to the left.
Perfect.
Sorry, to the west.
Thank you, Nina. Okay. All right. Any other comments? Councillor Douglas. Sure.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that council authorize the issuance of development variance permit number 117, and that the Director of Corporate Services be authorized to sign the permit granting the following variance to the zoning bylaw at 4735 and 4715 Dunbar Street. To vary section 6.7.3 fences and hedges to permit an increase to the maximum height of a fence within a required front yard from 1.25 meters, brackets 4.1 feet, to 1.83 meters, brackets 6 feet, for a variance of 0.58 meters, brackets 1.9 feet, at 4735 and 4715 Dunbar Street.
Moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any further discussion? Any comments? All right. Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed. Motion carries. All right, on to 2024 meeting schedules and council appointments. There is a report from Deputy Director of Corporate Services. Oh, sorry. I thought I was. So we're just heading into, I guess, discussion. Would staff like to speak to that? Sure. Thank you.
Through the mayor, certainly. Yeah, before you is the report under the charter. We need to provide notice of the meeting schedule for 2024. So we've offered up the regular council meeting, as has done in the past. We generally have our meetings the second and fourth Monday of every month, with the exception of July, August, and December, where we have one. And then as well with the committee of the whole, we added in some extra committee of the wholes in the spring to allow for our financial plan process. And then usually in the summertime in August and September and December, we don't have a committee of the whole meeting. As well, we've attached schedules for the Audit Committee, Advisory Planning Commission, our Advisory Traffic Committee, and the Alberni Valley Heritage Commissions. And as well, we're looking at council dissolving the personnel standing committee and the corresponding policy that goes with that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, discussion. Does anybody have any comments on that topic? Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we should probably deal with each one of these individually and not en masse, but my comments will be about all of it right now. Number one, I think that I understand the meeting schedule, of course, is as a result of our bylaw, procedures bylaw, but I think it would be an opportune time to change that. In that we've moved the public input period from the regular council meetings to the committee of the whole meetings. But we've stuck with the original schedule. Now, I note that there are now 12 council of the whole meetings, but I think that this would be an opportune time to actually increase the council of the whole meetings and simply have them opposite the regular council meeting. So I would suggest regular council meeting 1 week, next week committee of the whole meeting, next week regular council meeting. The result of that would be on month 1 you would have 2 council meetings and 1 committee of the whole, and then month 2 you'd have 2 committee of the whole meetings and 1 council. That may require some administrative jigging, but I think there would be great value to being able to meet with the taxpayers and electors of the city more often under that view of the committee of the whole. And I also recognize that we've put a lot more business into the committee of the whole meeting where we have discussion that's resulted in our regular council meetings being much shorter on the most part. So I think there's certainly room to make that change, and that would be my comment with regards to number 1. Not that we don't have meetings, but that we can jig the schedule a little bit. And if I can just continue with regards to number 3, I don't think that it would be a good idea to dissolve the personnel standing committee, in that it's an effective tool for council to use, as are all of the committees of council. And this is just a committee of council, so it doesn't make any final decisions. But it does gather information and make presentations towards council with regards to what council may or may not wish to pursue. And I don't think we should be getting rid of tools even if they aren't used or used very often. It may be something that the mandate of the committee should be reviewed, but as for out and out distancing it from the powers of council, I would be opposed to that. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, I'd like to ask the CEO about point number 3 as well, if that's okay. I understand that the Personnel Committee is in the collective agreement for both CUPE and the Firefighters Union. So what do you propose to replace the Personnel Committee with if you disband it? And what is the normal practice with other councils?
Sure, thank you for the question. So regularly a personnel committee is used for council to get updates from the CAO on matters of administration. In Port Alberni, it's used as one of the last steps before an arbitration with the union, and it's in the collective agreement. Most communities do have this step in a collective agreement. And what I've seen in most, as per the legislation, is if it's administrative in nature, then it's the responsibility of the CAO to administer that. So what we would do in this circumstance is a committee, a personnel committee would be made up of directors that aren't directly involved and the CAO for the last step. We're currently, it's the management committee at the Port Alberni, where usually they bring the CAO in it and other managers or directors. Where usually at that third stage, usually I'm used to seeing the director and the manager involved in the situation talking about it, and then it comes to the CAO on the last step before arbitration. So if council wishes, they could do either or. If they wanted to keep the mandate of this committee the same, they could. And if not, we can change it. So it is there. It's we are just advising council of regular practice when it comes to these sort of things, and the final decision rests with council.
Councillor Solda.
Yeah, just a quick question to our CEO regarding the potential committee that you're referring to. Could the mayor sit on that committee as well, be appointed to it, or if she's not available, a designated councillor? Would that work too?
Through the chair, currently there are 3 councillors that sit on the committee, and in I believe the terms of reference or the bylaw, I can't remember which one, but it does have the mayor as one of those or their designate. So that is currently how it works.
No, I understand that because I have been on a personnel committee in the past, but what I'm referring to is if we dissolve the present committee and had just like management or look on the committee, could a mayor sit into that council, that particular meeting, sorry?
Through the chair, that would be up to council to make the change to the committee if they wish to.
So sort of a hybrid is what you're proposing of having one representative from council as a liaison or as a member. Okay. Are there any other comments? All right. Yeah. Okay. I'm just thinking this one through. If there's. Is somebody prepared to make, well, there's 4 motions before us. I have
another question.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Councillor Solda.
I have another question on the schedule of appointments for deputy mayor. I would like to be removed off the January because I'm gone till the 14th, and there's no sense of having me as a deputy mayor in January if I'm not going to be around. So does somebody want to trade or like me for, take January and give me one of theirs?
Sure, it looks like Councillor Patola has
For
volunteered
the
to
amount,
do
this is,
tradesies with you. All right.
Yeah, I'll certainly trade February for January.
Councillor Douglas, did you have a comment or were you?
Well, I just thought we were... Item 1, I think Deputy Mayor is attached to the item 4 page. And I have a number of issues on that particular page as well to deal with, so I was just wondering if we wanted to keep to it, but it looks like it's been resolved, so.
Yeah, no, we have bounced around a bit. So I agree that we should get back to the first one, the first issue, and which is the meeting schedule. And did you have a comment on that?
Be happy to make that motion.
Sure.
So I'd like to make a motion that City of Port Alberni Council approve the 2024 regular meeting schedule attached to this report, and further that staff be authorized to publish notice of availability of this schedule.
I'll second that.
Moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Haggard. As far as comments goes, I have a comment, and I think it's important. I do agree with Councillor Patola's earlier comment that we did make a commitment to the public when we changed this that we would make an effort to include more meetings and more opportunity for public engagement. Now, we can approve this and still add further meetings down the road. So this isn't limiting us in any way. I think we could go ahead with this schedule as long as we keep in mind that as issues arise, as topics arise, it is our intention to create further opportunities. So maybe another meeting or two could be added. That's my thoughts on it. Are there any other comments? Oh, Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree. I don't want to schedule meetings just for the sake of scheduling meetings. I don't think that's useful for anyone, but certainly as things come up, we can certainly add in extra meetings. So I support that.
I'd just like to keep talking until Councillor Mealy returns for the vote. But I feel, in addition to what Councillor Haggard said, is, yeah, we can have, we've talked about in the past having coffee with mayor and council or different public venues where we could have special get-togethers and maybe move around the community in different locations as well. So I think that's a really good idea that we should address in the new year.
Yeah, I agree. Councillor Mealy?
My apologies. First thing I'd like to say is we need to put a deadbolt on the bathroom door in here, because if someone's in there, you can still walk in. So that needs to get back. More meetings are good. More nighttime meetings are good. More chances for the public to speak to us is always good. So, and I apologize, so I wasn't around for the conversation the last couple of minutes. So, but, and I also believe council should have somebody on the personnel committee still, at least some sort of representation. I can understand it from a staff point of view. And I think we're all professional enough. It's not one against the other. I think we're just trying to come to an agreement and have that extra body from the people there. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, just so you're aware, there is a motion on the floor. The first motion has been read. Perhaps we should read it again just for Councillor Mealy's benefit, if that's appropriate. It is the motion there. You're clear on it? Okay, just want to make sure you were good. So it's been moved and seconded. Are there any other comments on the first recommended motion that has been read? None? All right, all in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, would someone like to read the second motion? Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the City of Port Alberni Council approve the 2024 meeting schedules attached to this report for the Committee of the Whole, Audit Committee, Advisory Planning Commission, Advisory Traffic Committee, and Alberni Valley Heritage Commission.
Moved by Councillor Patola, seconded by Councillor Solda. Are there any comments on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed, the motion carries. On to the third recommended motion. Would somebody like to read that motion? And we can have further discussion if desired.
I'll read it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Just for conversation, discussion. I'll move the council dissolve the Personnel Standing Committee and further the council rescind the Personnel Standing Committee duties policy dated August 14th, 2017.
Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Are there any comments on this motion? Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if we could just amend the motion to have the mayor be part of the committee or her designate. I think it's important that we do have a different set of eyes come to these situations.
I'll second that.
CAO.
Through the chair, I think if council wishes to have people on the personnel committee, then you just leave it as it is, as it stands. It doesn't matter to administration if there's one or three people on the committee. If council wants a place at the table for the stages in the grievances, then you should have it. If you want to make changes to the makeup or what the committee is doing, you can direct administration to bring the policy back with the recommended changes. But then it wouldn't be dissolving anything. It would just be a report back on the suggested changes.
Okay, so there's no amendment required to the motion on the floor then? I'll CAO and then I'll go to Councillor.
You could just defeat the motion.
Councillor Patola?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think that might be that was what I would suggest, is that we defeat this motion and then pass further motion that administration bring back further information with regards to the terms of reference for the Personnel Standing Committee. I understand that there's definitely benefits for this to be an administrative committee. I also feel, though, that there is a certain amount of responsibility that the council bears itself. And so it's kind of a splitting of hairs here, or trying to balance the various interests. And I'd like a little bit more time and more information to figure out which the best way to go is. So yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Any other comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion fails. And on, go ahead, Councilor Chola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know this will offend my friend, Councillor Douglas, because there is no notice of motion. And perhaps just to keep him happy, because he's beside me and has sharp implements, I will make this a notice of motion that council directs staff to provide a further report outlining the potentials for the Personnel Standing Committee mandate and the advantage and disadvantages of it being either a council committee or an administrative committee.
It's a notice of motion, yeah. Okay. All right. Then the fourth recommendation, with Councillor Mealy.
I'll do that there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the 2024 deputy mayor appointments to committees and council, representatives to public bodies, commissions, and select committees be approved as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Solda. Oh.
With the changes.
Okay.
Oh, you weren't here, okay.
my
So we
apologies.
traded, Councillor Patola and I have traded a January to February, is it? Yes.
I stand corrected, Mr. Mayor, as amended.
Okay, so as amended, is that okay, the way we did that? Yes? Okay, okay. All right, so I'm not sure if you seconded or had your hand up for. Seconded, okay. So moved, seconded, any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Oh, whoa. Is that, okay, Councillor Douglas.
So I've got a couple of issues. I was really hoping our mayor was here, but obviously she couldn't be here. One of the issues is that I'm disappointed that we're abandoning what we used to have, from what I understand, a rotational representative on the regional district board. And not that I have any disagreement with our current representation there, but I do think it's valuable for other councillors to get the opportunity to sit on the regional district board. So I think we would have really benefited from a discussion about that concept rather than just carrying on with the status quo. So for that reason, I'll be voting against this one item as it stands. The other issue is just looking at my own personal selection. You know, I'm on the Port Alberni Port Authority Dry Dock Committee, but which from what I see does not exist. Now I know there may be some discussion about whether that exists or not, but the fact that we can discuss whether it exists points out that we definitely don't need two councillors on that committee. And so I would like to be struck from that committee. And the other item is as a suggestion. I've represented our mayor at the Sawakan Public Advisory Group for the past year. So, you know, if we took me off the dry dock committee, I could easily shift onto that and take that burden from her shoulders. So those are the three notes that I have with this one particular item. One thing I was going to suggest, if there are no, from our administrative side, no legal requirements to pass this one item at this time or prior to the end of the year, that we defer this one item so that we can have a discussion about those issues. Otherwise, we can proceed with the vote, and I'm quite happy being the dissenting voter on that issue. Thank you.
Okay, so you're requesting that we defer it?
I think that was my one suggestion. There may be other options for doing that. I don't think it's really appropriate that we switch too much here without the mayor being present to discuss it and point out concerns she might have. So that was one thought I had, is we could simply defer it until, a more appropriate time, and possibly in the meantime have a discussion about the issue.
Okay. I'm a little bit foggy on how a deferral works. CAO, if you could just clarify that.
Through the chair, I believe that if you didn't make the appointments today, then we would continue as is until you make the motion. But I might have to refer to the corporate officer to make sure on that.
Okay. That motion was moved and seconded, though, right? So we would have to defeat that then?
Oh.
Maybe a point of clarification, if I may, Mr. Mayor. So this is the organizational meeting. So as far as I know, and again, we have experts on the other side, is that this needs to be dealt with today, as per the Local Government Act or Community Charter. I could be wrong. And maybe I would just ask the corporate officer when she is ready, because I don't want to put her on the spot. She's looking for it right now. But that would be, I think the general question at this point is, if it has to be dealt with today, then we need to deal with it today legally. But if we don't, then we do have a motion on the floor that we can defeat and then defer to another meeting, in which hopefully Madam Mayor will be here and clarify a couple things, because, and I understand what Councillor Douglas is trying to say. We wouldn't want to make changes to this today, knowing that the mayor is not here, because obviously that she is duly elected as the mayor, and this is part of her responsibility setting this up. So I would ask staff to comment when they have a chance.
Thank you. Through the deputy mayor. The community charter for what we're doing today, section 127, requires us to provide notice on these schedules on or before January 31st. So I believe we're fine in terms of the schedule. In terms of the council appointments, I believe Mr. Fox is correct in that if no decisions are made to accept this new council appointment for 2024, it would need to stand as is until you would need to, I guess, defeat the motion, and if you wish to meet with the mayor, or you could refer it actually to the next council meeting, which is currently suggested as January 8th.
Okay. Is that what you would like to do then, Councillor Douglas? Is that your intention?
Well, it sounds like a healthy option. It allows us the opportunity to discuss, which direction we want to go. I'm happy with whatever council's wishes.
Does that require a vote, or can a single councillor request that an issue be referred? Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you. Just a reminder, you have the motion seconded on the floor, so I think you would need to amend the motion to refer it to the January 8th meeting.
Councillor Patola.
Not to jump in with another opinion, but there is a motion on the floor. It needs to either be voted on, or there needs to be a secondary motion to defer it to another date. I think Councillor Douglas is trying to do that, but he hasn't made a motion, and in lieu thereof, if no motion is made, we vote on this motion.
Fair enough. Councillor Mealy.
as the person trying to figure it out somewhere in the middle, as the person who moved the motion, would it be through you to staff as a friendly amendment from myself, merely to just say the select committees be deferred to the next council meeting? Is that something I can do, or do we have to have the vote?
If you get a second, your seconder agrees with that, then you could make a friendly motion.
Do we have a seconder for that?
Yeah, so that would be, and I apologize, Mr. Mayor, so then
Yeah.
the amendment would be deputy mayor appointments to committees and council representatives, public bodies, commissions, and select committees be deferred to the next council meeting, which is January 8th, 2024.
All right. Yayo.
Sorry, through the chair, I might not have been clear. It would have to be the person that seconded the motion at the beginning if you were going to make a friendly amendment. If not, then you would have to defeat it and then make a motion.
So as the mover, I would accept that, and whoever the seconder was, we can ask. Who was the seconder? Councillor Solda?
And I won't agree to it because I'm not here on that day. And remember, I'm away till the 14th. So if we moved it further, yes, but I will not agree to that because I want to be part of this discussion. Thank you.
Oh, good to know.
Councillor Patola.
Thank you. As a parliamentarian, I'm not sure that the mover of a motion can then move to defer his own motion once it's made. And the amendment that was proposed is not a friendly amendment. It's completely changes the nature and character of the motion. So in order to preserve any sense of etiquette, I think that we should have a motion, or we should have a vote on the first motion and see what happens, unless someone wants to make the specific motion that is allowed at the time. Right now, someone can make a motion, if it's seconded, to defer to a specific date. Or we can just vote on this and let the cards fall.
Do we have that specific motion or? No. Okay. Well, then I'm just going to call this to a vote then. All in favor? Opposed? So motion is defeated. Correct? A tie is a defeated motion? Okay. Councillor Mealy.
May I try again then, Mr. Mayor? Let me just get the schedule of council meetings out here for next year. Alrighty then. So I move that the 2024 deputy mayor appointments to committees and council representative public bodies, commissions, and select committees be referred to the January 22nd, 2024 regular council meeting.
Moved by Councillor Mealy, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Councillor Solda.
So I'm just kind of curious. I see our CAO is looking at Robert's rules. And so could we just have a pause for a second so he could take a look at the Robert's rules? You can go ahead. Okay.
Councillor Patola.
I understand what my friend is trying to do. I fully support what my friend is trying to do. May I suggest that he's paddling a motorboat and we put him in the right vessel. The right vessel would be not to make a motion that is to defer, because that is a motion that can only be made as a point of order with regards to a motion that's on the floor. I think what my friend wishes to do is bring a notice of motion that a notice that this motion will be heard on the date he's selected.
Just to clarify, I apologize if I said refer, not defer. So I'm just referring that to that meeting.
Okay. This was yeah, sure. Councillor Solda.
So our CAO, or our corporate director of services, mentioned something about the 31st. Is this going to be enough time to do all what we have to do for paperwork? So there is something there. So I need clarification on that too, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the deputy mayor, we do need to provide notice, which is 2 consecutive advertisements in the newspaper. So if we could have it wrapped up by the first meeting in January, that would be probably the best course of action.
Thank you. Okay, so, sorry, just to clarify, you mean we need to have these appointments wrapped up by the first meeting in January?
I believe, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but I believe January 8th, making the decision on January 8th would give us enough time to provide notice for the January 31st deadline.
Okay, so the notice of motion then will not be effective as that will be past the point.
Sorry,
We
just
need to have
a
this
point of
finalized.
clarification. It wasn't a notice of motion, it was a motion. Sorry, Councillor Dame, or Mr. Mayor, I do apologize. And taking into account, trying to work around Councillor Solda and her schedule, that's why the 8th didn't work, so I thought the 22nd would work. So I am at the whim of council. I'm good any day, any week, any day, so.
All right. So I'm not even sure where this leaves us at this point. We have to get these appointments finalized, and this motion was defeated, which means that it will carry on as is. Councillor Mealy.
Sorry, I apologize, Mr. Mayor. I thought my motion was on the floor. So, and just to clarify, maybe through you to the corporate officer. So if we have the meeting and the decision on the 22nd, that is not going to be enough time for us. Is that correct?
Through the Deputy Mayor, that's correct.
So may I just rescind my motion, Mr. Mayor? Or call a question, let's defeat it then.
Sure. Yeah, so was there a seconder even? I don't, who seconded? John seconded. All right. All right. So motion on the floor. All in favor? All opposed? Motion is defeated. Okay. Wow. All right. So we still, as it stands then, the committee appointments will carry on as they are. All right. Then, Councillor Patola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a notice of motion that the 2024 Deputy Mayor appointments to committees and council representatives to public bodies, commissions, and select committees be approved as circulated. That is a notice of motion to be brought at the next meeting of council.
Very good. Moved by Councillor Patola, seconded by Councillor. I'm all flustered now. Okay. All right, thank you for your notice of motion. Now, does that, okay, yeah, we're just gonna move on. Yeah, no, all right, so moving on to community grant application, a report from the Economic Development Manager.
Good afternoon, Council. We saw an opportunity to move Council direction to find a way of incorporating feedback and input from Sachat and Hupachasset into the Council meetings by applying for this community-to-community grant. So what we put forward in an application to that program was funding for up to 5 meetings between the 3 councils or representatives of the council, along with some legal opinion about the option or options that those meetings came to. So we put an application forward for the maximum amount of funding from the program, with a small amount of funding that would come from the reconciliation fund. And we are open to, obviously, an alternative which council may desire rather than going this route. I think, if I remember correctly, that when I saw the minutes, the option 2 had been blended into option 1. For that, we apologize, but I do believe that the analysis allowed pros and cons for each of the options. So with that, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? None. Okay, would somebody like to make that motion? Councillor Patola.
I need to find it, so until I find it, I will make the motion as, the council for the city of Port Alberni approve the city as an applicant to the Union of BC Municipalities 2023-24 Community to Community Program and direct staff to provide overall grant management.
Moved by Councillor Patola, seconded by Councillor Mealy. Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Councillor Solda, you had a question.
First, Johnson Road. Just a quick update from the CEO would be nice on the Johnson Road and the lights and what's happening, just in case those who haven't driven Johnson Road have taken a look.
Sure, thank you for the question, and through the chair. Operations is currently working with the contractor to get a limited amount of lights up on Johnston as approved by Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure Services.
So just when you say limited, what does that mean? And if it's not all, why not all?
Through the chair, the Department of Transportation has policies and standards that the city must adhere to. And some of the guidelines, once decorations are on it or lights are on it, may sink below the maximum or the minimum height levels for streets. And if that is the case, then we will not be putting lights on those guy wires. However, in the new year, we're planning on doing engagement with the public on where lights should be and talk with the public about some options moving forward, and or do we try and replace guidelines to put them where it meets the ministry's standards and policies.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to that, having that engagement with the community, as well as maybe updating some of our lights. I'm sure we're not at LED on some of the lights we have. If we aren't, then I'd like to see us move forward on that too.
Through the chair, the operations when we have to replace lights are moving to a LED type light and a more industrial type of light for Christmas that may be also used at other times of the year.
Yeah, Councillor
I
Haggard.
just want to make a comment about the Christmas lights from this subject. I just want to congratulate staff because I think Harbor Key looks fantastic this year. So please pass that on, that they did a great job down there.
I will, and I agree wholeheartedly with your statement.
Are there any other comments on that topic? None? Okay, Councillor Solda.
Oh, yes. The SOMAS announcement. Let's have some happy news, and what time can people expect that announcement, and where do they go, or where do they look? Thank you.
Thanks for the question, and through the chair. So Tuesday will be the announcement early in the morning around 9 a.m. So you could stay tuned to your email. I'm sure it'll go out on social media as well as radio and other local news outlets. We're very excited about the news as administration and look forward to moving forward. In January, the development partner will be here to also meet with council and hopefully have another engagement with the media.
And just one more question to the CAO. So a lot of people are writing like, this is what they want, this is their wish list for that particular 43 acres. But can you explain exactly close to what the announcement's going to be? It's not their Christmas wish.
Through the chair, you're correct. It'll be which development partner we're going to be working with into the future on a master development agreement. And hopefully we'll have more information on the process on what's going to be decided for the site in the new year.
All right, thank you for that. Moving on to the question period. Are there any members of the public who would like to approach and ask some questions? Joseph.
Hi, my name's Joseph. I live here in Port Alberni. And I could get this clarified by talking to planning, but just since this came up today, I'm going to ask for clarification for myself and maybe others might be listening in. Development variance permit was requested today, and I'm just curious, fence considered a development? I guess it is. Is that correct?
Looks like Deputy CAO.
So the city has regulations on fences in our zoning bylaw. A development variance permit is a piece of provincial legislation that allows members of the public to ask for a variance to that regulation. So it's not that it's a development necessarily, but that's the legislation that allows a member of the public or a developer to ask council to consider a variance of a regulation in our zoning bylaw or other bylaws that council has adopted.
Yeah, good. So I understand variance when somebody's applying for developing a building, variance setback, different things like that. So I understand that part of it. With a fence, I wasn't sure about that because I've built fences before. Does a fence require a permit?
A fence does not require a building permit, but does require to meet the regulations that council has adopted in its bylaws.
Right, thank you. That makes sense then. Good, because I was considering if I'm building a fence, if it's considered development, I require a permit. Like everything, it would be applied for before I start building and not after I've completed something. So it just seems a bit odd that this falls in the variance permit thing. So I'm just looking for clarification. So in future, if I'm building a fence, do I require a permit? And do I build first and then maybe request the variance afterwards? And with that in mind, it's just a bit different the way I'm just trying to understand the process and how it all works. And because people will do things and then go and apply, or they'll get some complaint, whatever it is, and then this process starts or is underway. So with this taking place now, with this variation or this variance being allowed, being permitted, and I'm not objecting to it, I'm just trying to understand the process. So now, does that mean that now, because the zoning bylaw in that area, it was initially 4 feet, is now up to 6 feet? Does that mean, not that it's just going to be ad libitum, that we can just all go build 6-foot fences, and we can do that anywhere we want now because it's now been allowed in one area that's zoned for 4 foot. So I'm just wondering how that applies now to other people that are considering building. Does that kind of throw the doors open? Or do they have to, of course, it sounds like to me, and I think I'm answering my own question, but now I just can't go ahead. I still have to apply for a variance if I want to do it. But it just sort of clouds things a little bit for me. So if you can clarify that for me, be nice. Thank you.
So council considered and granted a site-specific variance under the circumstances that were presented for council's consideration today. So other regulations still apply for all other properties within the city.
Great. Thank you. I sort of figured that was the case, but I say it just kind of looked a little cloudy to me, so thank you. And I looked at, not again to, but I looked at previous pictures of the property and there was a hedge that was quite high prior to the fence. I've seen developments go up where there are higher fences than 6 feet, but they're set back a little bit from the property line. And then shrubbery is put in place to make it look kind of nice. It's not just a wall up. And yeah, so it's just trying to make a community look nice, and the city, have to look at all these different things and how do you have something that's sort of standardized and everybody can kind of be happy with. And I know it's a tough one, so thanks for the input from the person that was requesting and for city looking into it and being diligent in satisfying all the needs. So thanks again, and thank you for your answers today.
Thanks, Joseph. Are there any other members of the public? Roland? Yeah.
There we go. I watched from home. I'm just looking for a bit of clarification after all these years of following successive council administrations. I'm still learning, and I admit that. So today we have Acting Mayor Dane, Councillor Dane. Earlier, there was quite a discussion about the committees and appointments and the office of the power of the mayor, that the mayor was elected and was elected for this role. But Part 5, Division 1 of the Community Charter allows for Councillor Dane alternates to be appointed as mayor. And Section 3, 133, the member designated under subsection 1, which reads, the council must, in accordance with its applicable procedure bylaw, provide for the designation of a councillor as the member responsible for acting in the place of the mayor when the mayor is absent or otherwise unable to act, or when the office of mayor is vacant. The member designated under subsection 1 or chosen under subsection 2, which is if you are away another designate, has the same powers and duties as the mayor in relation to the applicable matter. So I'm not saying that mayor meetings should be excluded. I'm trying to understand this part of the community charter. And if a different issue was being discussed and a councillor is an acting mayor, does that acting mayor, through the community charter, is it the authority conferred on that person to act?
CAO,
Through the chair, I'll try and answer it. So the deputy mayor would grant all the decision-making power of the mayor. However, if council decided that they wanted to wait or for a subsequent meeting, they can make that decision as well. But if they did make a decision today and change any of the schedules, then council would be bound to that until they make the next decision.
Councillor Mealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I can appreciate the question, and I think we have time to do it, and it's on, at least for me, and I know that the motion was, we have a previous mayor here as well, would like to wait for the mayor. I think it's just a respect thing. She is the one that sets all this up. Now, if we didn't have time, absolutely we'd make that decision today. That's the way I'd look at it. But it was just to wait for Madam Mayor to be here so we can go all through it together, and it's just, in the end, the people elected her as the mayor, and if we have time, love to have her as part of that conversation and just make sure we get it right with her in the room. That's all.
Yeah, and I agreed with that, but it just came across that you couldn't make the decision today because the mayor wasn't here. And I just wanted to clarify that because a lot of people don't watch council as often as I do, or my friend Joseph does, but I wanted that sort of clarified, and that's happened, so thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. Oh, Councillor Douglas, did you have a comment for?
Roland, sorry, I just wanted to add and confirm basically what Councillor Mealy said is, we ascertained that there wasn't an urgent time deadline for this particular issue. Correct. We had the time, we're a family, we like to discuss things and resolve things with unanimity, where to get a full consensus. So that's why we chose to do this, so that we can include the full council in the discussion. That's the way I think we all see it. Okay? Yeah. Thank you.
And as I mentioned in my opening remarks, that there was no way suggesting that the elected mayor should be excluded. Just clarifying this section of the community charter for people that are randomly watching and said, how does this actually work? Because if the mayor is away for any reason, who's running the municipality? So, and does that authority through the community charter confer to the person who's acting? That's what I want to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you, Roland. Appreciate the information. All right. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to come up and ask a question? Seeing none. Before we adjourn, I would just like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a safe holidays. Can I get a movement for adjournment? Moved by Councilor Patola, seconded by Councilor Mealy. All in favor? Carried.